Welcome to A Call to Action. It's a series presented by Great Eastern Radio and Brattleboro Community Television. We're covering many different topics, from protecting Dr. Fauci to untangling the mask debate. Today we're talking to literally everybody. There is everybody on this call. I'm Peter Fish-Case. Everybody, welcome to A Call to Action.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thanks.
So, yeah, thank you. All right, so Stephen, we had a minute to discuss beforehand. Right now, the United States appears to be on fire, and we wanted to sort of just give you a platform for a second to kind of echo what we're all feeling, and just take a moment to recognize that. So, if you wouldn't mind.
I think it's just important to acknowledge the moment that we're in and the world that we live in, and the injustice that now, after so long, has kind of come to the forefront. And we all are in a position of feeling it viscerally in all of our communities, and we need to kind of look at ourselves in a new way and consider what we each can do to change the tide that we've seen. But I feel incredibly fortunate and privileged to be working for the town of Brattleboro and working with these people in this circle on an activity that brings us together when these times get tough, rather than seeing our community be torn apart. And so it's a great privilege to work as the sustainability coordinator for the town of Brattleboro and with these amazing folks. So I'm just grateful to be able to talk about this with you guys on this day. And I also think it's important that we acknowledge the moment we're in, and the work there is to be done still.
Well said. Thank you. All right, well, let's get right into it. And the reason why we're here, and we're going to be talking about a lot of food, a lot of sustainability. I'm going to call everybody's name just to introduce everybody. If you would just raise your hand. Carrisa Brewton from Retreat Farm. Thank you for that. Erin Naily-Okeefe is a Human Connections project. Roger Albee, the former agricultural secretary. Thank you. We have Lucy Billings, a food systems expert. Thank you. Margaret Atkinson from Winston, Prouty and the Vermont Hunger Council. Lissa Harris from Strolling of the Heifers. Marilyn Ciarello from Edible Brattleboro. And of course, Stephen Dotson, who we just heard from, who's the sustainability. All right, so Stephen, set us up. Why are we all here today? Why do we have literally the Brady Bunch of food going on here today?
Yeah, should we do the talk to each other, look down the frame thing? We had some conversations that had started among a bunch of community organizations that just wanted to explore how to support food systems, local food systems, being stronger and more resilient in Brattleboro. And that even started a little bit before we entered this whole new COVID era. And then it was just readily apparent that everybody in the community had a highly increased interest in gardening once this whole era occurred. A lot of people have a lot more time on their hands, and food is always something we've turned to for connection, for security, as Vermonters. So we all were noticing this, and a lot of the groups in town were doing various things to support it. So we basically just created a story that we are inviting others to try and participate in. We're trying to recognize the amazing energy that's in the community and organize resources to make it easier this growing season for anybody to start gardening and be successful, find a group to garden with. All the resources, we've tried to just kind of catalog them so they're more easily found and accessible. So that's what this growing resilience idea is, the story is, and it's all of us. It's all of our story. It's not any one groups in this circle. It's all of Brattleboro's and the world's, I think.
Great, thank you. Erin, let's start with you. Tell us about the Human Connections Project, and tell us what you're doing during the whole pandemic.
My work is organizing and develop curriculums that connect communities, both already connected and also disparate communities. And in mid-March, I joined Jen Jacobs and Angela Earl Gray to start to develop Brattleboro Area Mutual Aid. So in developing that, that was a lot of structural systems development to create a way of neighbors to connect to neighbors. And one of those ways is that we developed a map for various neighborhoods in Brattleboro And now that we have those neighborhoods organized, we started to look to how can we leverage those connections to meet the needs of everyone. And one of those new initiatives that ties into this whole initiative is the Garden Corps. So local neighbors that are gardening together in their neighborhood.
Okay, we're sort of breaking up a little bit with your connection. If you could you just repeat about the last 5 seconds of what you just said?
Okay, so about the Garden Corps in particular.
Please.
So we're working with neighborhoods to identify folks that want to offer part of their land along the sidewalk to create help yourself gardens to address food security and also to address how we can come together and support equity in our community.
Okay, great. Thank you, Erin. Thank you for that. I'm going to jump down to Roger Albee, and I say, and in my view, Roger's in the lower right-hand corner. And I guess he had done an op-ed on Victory Gardens, so this whole meeting is kind of his fault. So,
Yeah.
and if we could, Erin said something interesting, and I had seen this project before, where in cities where they've taken the little patches of dirt they have and creating little gardens. Roger, explain the whole Victory Garden op-ed that you did, because it was an interesting op-ed.
Well, you know, in both World War I and World War II, Victory Gardens were a key source of food supply in the United States. They even organized youth, and they organized other people to grow these gardens. They were grown in vacant lots on schools and window boxes, and they basically fed a great majority of the population at that time. And we've had a great movement on community gardens in Vermont as well over a period of time. It's interesting. This morning, I got some information from the Center for Research at the University of Vermont, and it said that they have just finished a study of food insecurity, and they've noted that food insecurity is increased by 33% since COVID-19 in the state. And I think we've seen miles of cars lined up for getting food in several locations in Vermont, including Brattleboro, I believe,
yep.
Recently. And so these gardens are a key source of food that can be used by people themselves and by others.
All right, thank you. Marilyn, let's talk about your role in this whole thing as Edible Brattleboro. This is nothing that's new to you, correct?
No. We actually started a little over 5 years ago. When I first moved to Vermont, which is now about 7 years, I recognized the level of food insecurity that was surrounding me, and was inspired by a TED Talk with a similar program in England. And we flew with it, and a group of people got together and we started our first garden at the co-op with the intention of it being for people who are food insecure, but we didn't want to have any kind of signage or anything that showed that. So it was just a help yourself garden. And that's our model. We just plant gardens in public access spaces, and we have people help themselves to the harvest. We have since included a weekly Share the Harvest stand that opens in July, where people, we typically get donations from local farmers, and I'm happy to say the few that are still at the farmers market this year are willing to participate, and we're working on seeing about picking up food from other farms as well. So we give that away on Sundays, and it's been tremendously welcomed by the community. And people have been asking, are you going to be doing it this year? And we finally were able to confirm, yes, we will be doing it. We now have, this year alone, we planted, I think, 7 or 8 trees, fruit trees, and 4 blueberry bushes just yesterday. And these are, again, help yourself locations. So we're hoping that that helps to contribute to the access to food in public spaces all around town.
Now,
And we're encouraging local homeowners as well, or people who have access to a small piece of land or even a container garden, to set something up near their home so they can be caring for it. We don't have the capacity in terms of volunteers to be able to maintain every garden, and annual gardens require a lot more care than the perennial ones. So we're opening it up to have people do the same, and we will help get those set up. We focus a lot on building healthy soil as a good foundation for any plantings we do, and as an educational resource, and also a human resource for people to get their garden started. We're able to help with that.
great. And you guys just planted some fruit trees on the front lawn of the Municipal Center in downtown Brattleboro.
It's been a dream of mine for the past 5 years. I kept seeing that big, massive grass lawn, and it finally happened. We have 3 cherry trees growing there.
That's outstanding. It really, really is. Lucy, let's talk to your role as a food systems expert and what that means.
Sure. Thanks, Peter. Well, to start off, maybe I should just define food system. So that's basically everything from farm to fork, including it involves producers, processors, distributors, retailers, and also consumers. And there are many different types and flavors of food systems. Probably the food system that many interact with is at a very industrial scale. Here in Vermont, I think that there is a pivot towards a more local, regional food system where people get closer to the producers that are producing their food. And I think home production is about as close to the source as you can get in a lot of ways. So I'm interested in being involved in growing a more local food system that's healthy, sustainable, and equitable. And I've been really impressed by how this group, which has been named the Community Farm Action Team, so it involves those who are on this call now and other local organizations who are involved in supporting the food system. I've been really impressed at how they've come together as a network and organized for the Grow Resilience initiative. There's a tremendous amount of energy and expertise within this group, and it's really shown in how the resources have come together for this initiative. That said, I see potential for this group to do a lot more to support the local food system. In particular, I would like to see the Town Agricultural Advisory Committee revived. This committee was originally established in the early 80s to advise the Town Select Board on issues that pertain to Brattleboro's farming community, but the committee's been inactive for the past several years. And I think reviving this committee with a focus on the wider local food system, again, that includes producers, processors, consumers, that would provide a platform for future activities of this group and others to offer guidance on the development and supportive policies to support that healthy, sustainable, and just food system for the community of Brattleboro.
Great. Stephen, you had your hand up.
I just wanted to share, because Lucy's being a little humble too, that in her professional life, she works to help develop food systems abroad that are in kind of developing countries. And that's where she gets kind of this background that she's kind of offering leadership and seeing us bring this committee to support our food and farms back. So I've been very grateful for her volunteer energy and expertise to lean on.
Great. Thank you. So just so we're all clear here, I'm not going in any particular order. I had an order written out here, which I have not followed. So, but I'm trying to kind of link this chain a little bit. Now, Lucy had said something about creating and the same as Marilyn. And I want to jump to Carrisa now from Retreat Farm, because they've done, I don't want to say a complete 180 pivot from where they were last summer to this summer, but you've kind of done a 180 pivot, right? Can you talk about what's going on at Retreat Farm?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the pandemic, I guess that was March, we really started to talk immediately about what this could look like for our season, and recognizing that our large gatherings and programming may not be safe for this year, but we really wanted to be a resource for the community and use our agricultural history and our land as something that the community can use. So we've doubled our community garden to allow more people to have their own gardens if they don't have space at home. All of our plots are claimed, but that's been a beautiful thing to see develop. And then we are also cultivating about 2 to 3 acres of land for vegetable production, which is something we haven't done to that scale before, which is a really exciting development for the farm. Getting into this vegetable, and then our site in general will be, or is already, free and open to the public instead of the traditional model of paying to come into the barn and see the animals. The site is open for the public to enjoy the trails, some of which are new and we're building and maintaining. And then a really fun aspect that I'm really excited for is our Hope Garden, which is up in the piggery by Carlos, which will be in the shape of a labyrinth. So it'll be a meditative space to enjoy nature, but parts of the garden will be highlighted as a place where people can pick their own harvest or harvest their own produce from the garden. And then other parts of the garden will be for our food donation and programming. But it's been amazing to see that we aren't reliant on our traditional model, and we could shift very quickly when needed.
Yeah, and you're also in the interim until the food starts growing. Retreat Farm has also been putting together bags of groceries to help feed families during this as well. Can you talk to that for a second?
Yes, so for I don't know how many weeks now, but we've been putting together 50 grocery bags of food, primarily from grocery store and Food Connects, just staple healthy foods like beans, eggs, bread. And then as we transition to the summer months and we actually have our produce growing, we will focus on local produce sourced from our farm, as well as partnerships with other local farms. Wild Carrot is one of them just up the street. We've bought a couple of their CSA shares, and we will distribute that produce evenly through our emergency food program, which is what we're calling that, those 50 grocery bags.
Right. Well, that's great. So speaking of organizations that have had to kind of pivot a little bit, let's talk to Harris. And so we don't have a parade this year. And although this line of thinking also is not new to Strolling of the Heifers and some of its initiatives, but what does not having a parade this year mean for Strolling of the Heifers, Lissa?
Well, it being my first year on the job, it's I wish I had like a year prior at least to compare it to, but I can only really kind of speak to what the experience has been like this year. We did have to cancel the parade, and when we did that, Stephen reached out to me because we kind of wanted to, the parade for a lot of people in town is really a way for everyone to get together and celebrate our local farmers and our local farms. And we didn't want to lose that kind of celebratory spirit that the parade brings to town. And so Stephen reached out to me and, put forth the idea of growing resilience and really taking like kind of the parade theme and turning it into all the wonderful things that all these organizations are doing in town, and really pooling our resources so that we all become the parade. And we had a lot of in-kind sponsors that would normally give us resources that we needed to put on the parade. And so we reached out to them to try to have them donate to this growing resilience movement that we're doing. We've got some sponsors who were donating resources. You know, we're asking them to donate things like soil or containers or lumber for garden beds. Brattleboro Portable Storage, who usually gives us a container for the parade, was able to give us a container for 3 months, which is an incredible donation, that we can store all of our gardening resources that we're accumulating. So it's just been a really great way to, you know, get all of these local businesses that would normally be involved in the parade to still be involved in helping the community and helping all the people.
Great, thank you. Well, yeah, I know this is upset a lot of apple carts, no pun intended, to the summer. But Margaret Atkinson from Winston Prouty, let's bring you in as our 9th contestant here on. And let's talk about what Winston Prouty's doing. And you're also a member of the Vermont Hunger Council as well, correct?
Yeah, so both these things, Winston Prouty has become has worked hard since they acquired the campus, the former Austin campus. We worked really hard to have that resource really be a crossroads and center of a lot of great activity for the community. We host UVM Extension is here, and a lot of other amazing nonprofits are our neighbors here on campus. Winston Prouty, during the non-COVID times, we ran a early care and learning program serving over 60 families. And we also have community-based services where we do early intervention, nursing, housing support for about 600 families in Windham County. So we have a broad reach, and we touch a lot of people from all walks of life. This is our 3rd year of doing a pretty large school garden. And school gardens, of course, the movement here locally has really been spearheaded by the amazing organization Food Connects over the past, 10 to 12 years. Gardens can really be amazing centers of learning. And as we are, the middle of this week we'll be welcoming children back to our center, and we are doing a lot of outdoor programming, very much centered on our woods and fields and gardens. So our hope with this project, besides having some fun little partnerships, some of our space in the garden is growing, is some space devoted to growing heirloom peas that have an amazing fun name, the large marrow fat. Go look for that out in the world. We're hoping in the fall to be hosting Edible Brattleboro's Hoop House, because we have lots of space here, and the garden folks here are excited about having that resource. And we hope to, with the growing resilience social media stuff, to be posting some fun things to do with kids and some inspirational things just from our garden, just so that folks out in the community parenting can maybe get some new ideas about how to use the outside around them. If all these folks are out doing gardening, you should bring your kids along and have them learn. And I think, as somebody who is the kid of somebody who my dad was a young child during the Victory Garden era, and he inflicted his knowledge of massive gardening and canning on all of his 6 kids. And so it's good to see, I want other children to both have the joy and the pain of being in the garden all summer long. So that's what we're doing. And the Windham Region Hunger Council, I'll just add, I'm one of the co-chairs. That is a place, it's a project sponsored by Hunger Free Vermont, and that is a place where a lot of cross-sector folks committed to parts of the food system meet and talk and strategize on how to make, especially the charitable food system, food banks, projects like Marilyn's, as effective and as possible, and to also advocate for things like better SNAP benefits, free school meals, summer meals, things like that. So that is a very active and great group of people who have been working for a long time on helping people access food in a just and sustainable way.
Great, thank you. I know that years ago we took one of my grandchildren gleaning, and the big and to kind of to show him where this food was going. I mean, all right, granted, he was an 8-year-old at the time, and his takeaway was that he got to play with a knife. But but moreover, we taught him the lesson about where the food goes when you glean and who it helps. Roger, I'll direct this question to you. So everybody here has their foot in growing the food. How important is that going to be in the next year or two, as we try to kind of right the ship, if you will?
I think all this is going to be extremely important. There's been, as Margaret says, there's been a big gleaning effort for some time in Vermont, and that continues. We know that out of this COVID-19, there's an increased interest in more local food. We've seen the supply lines disrupted in terms of the consolidation that's taking place nationally in our food systems. So I think this is going to be extremely important to have the local food and regional food as well, in terms of not only growing but supplying it going forward.
Okay, thank you. I guess one of the other questions I had as we continue to grow things, and I know that that everybody has a different timeline for when things grow, but when will we be looking forward to like actually being able to harvest crops, and what does the timeline look for that? I mean, Carrisa, I guess let's just start with you. Is there a timeline as to when we'll be reaping the rewards from these crops?
I think I missed a little bit of the conversation because my Zoom crashed. So are we talking about when produce will come into season?
About the timeline. So now you guys have tilled the fields. You're going to begin to plant. Like when will the food actually be coming out? I'm just as a non-farmer, I just asked that question. All right, Margaret, I think we're crashing again.
So our strawberries are coming in,
or like some fall crops that would like broccoli would probably come in the summer.
Okay.
But even now, there are technologies. Some people do manure beds and greenhouses and other things for heat. There are technologies and methods to have crops more year round as well.
Right.
And I think it's important to note the farmers market is now opening up. They have protocols to do that, and we always want to support our local farmers markets. Part of what I point out is that even if you're not harvesting yet, the materials to do it yourself for the first time, it's easier to get those more easily than ever. Can I share the website that we've set up here? It's growingresilience.info. Has the offerings of all these groups and way more. If you need a group to garden with, if you need to find the expertise, the materials, it's all there and pertinent to Brattleboro. So that's one place to check out moving forward. And we'll continue to put out information for when harvest comes, where to find gleanings and things like that. So that's what this is really about, is making all those resources accessible to folks. And if you're an organization who wants to pitch in, there's kind of a choose your own support function there. You just fill out a form and let us know what you're doing to support community gardening, and we catalog it to give people access.
As well as how to prepare food. Like Margaret, my mother, taught me how to hold a garden and how to can and root cellars and all those things. So there's a big thing in terms of food preparation and storage as well connected.
Okay. Marilyn?
Yes, food preparation has been a big part of what Edible Brattleboro does during the non-growing seasons. We've had a number of food experiences where people came together and we prepared a communal meal and then shared it. I don't know exactly what that will look like going forward, but we are poised to utilize an existing greenhouse this season up at Hilltop Montessori. And we're going to be planting a lot of tomatoes so we can do some canning come fall. And hopefully we could do it in small groups and have people do a make it and take it. We do the canning and then people will go home with it. So we're trying to get poised to have that operation continuing and increase the number of people who are really recognizing the importance and value of good, healthy, fresh produce.
Great. All right, Erin, is there you've had your hand up a few times. Was there something that you wanted to weigh in on?
Well, I just wanted to also contribute, like, kudos to Marilyn and Edible Brattleboro. They were the folks I went to first when we started to think about Garden Core and how to connect our neighbors to resources around starting gardens and Help Yourself Gardens, which I love that name. And one resource that we've been committed to providing is education. So as neighborhoods want to have education around how do we get one started, they can have the resources for that. And this will also tie into the Growing Resilience website as well. But last week we had, maybe it was 2 weeks ago, we had Marilyn on.
So. All right. Well,
so we have a recording of Marilyn teaching us how to sheet mulch.
Okay. Great. And Lissa, what is going to be the Stroll's like driving force for the summer? I mean, am I wrong to think that this coming weekend would have been the Stroll?
That's correct. Yeah, this weekend would have been the Stroll. We are still doing the Slow Living Summit virtually. Okay. And it's starting Thursday. It's going all through next week with a whole bunch of different panels and keynote speakers, including Bill McKibben and Frances Moore LePay, who wrote Diet for a Small Planet. But yeah, we're looking, just like everybody else, we've had to pivot in 1,000 different ways. We've partnered with a creamery, a local creamery. We will be giving out free milk at the end of the week out of the river garden. We're staff and I are looking to see how we can reopen the river garden in a way that's safe for the community and for staff. Just trying to do as much as we can and offer as much as we can to the local community and to our farm and food community. We're offering COVID one-on-one business consulting for folks, farms and food businesses who have been affected by COVID-19, trying to get them back on their feet. We do long-term consulting too, to try to help them not only recover, but to thrive over the next few years. So really just focusing on how we can help during this time.
Great, thank you. So I guess we should bring it in for a landing, but I do have to say this, that it's now March 83rd, and so we've been in this for roughly about 10 weeks. And I think that everybody on this call has just moved mountains and acted quickly, and in an era in which we have to be reactive and not so much proactive. I think that this crew has been really proactive and has really taken it. And if you're watching at home, no offense to Roger, no offense to Stephen, but the future of fixing this thing is clearly female, and I applaud that. So thank you for all just being strong and being right out there and just putting your head down and getting through all this. And I really do want to thank you. Was there anything before we close it out that anybody that might need to say, or some information that needs to get out there? Now would be that opportunity.
I would just highlight visit growingresilience.info. You'll find all the links to BAMA and joining a group neighborhood garden or pitching in with Marilyn and a public help yourself garden. If you need to learn the things or get the stuff, it's all there. And if you want to add support, there's a way to do that there too. So we're just excited to be sharing this moment with the community and able to be of service in this way.
Great. Thank you all for jumping on a call to action with us today.
Thank you.
All
Yeah,
right.
thank you.
Thanks, Fish.